Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Discover a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.
Hello, motherfuckers.
Wow, why would you talk to our listeners like that?
I
It's
mean,
really mean. You're such a mean girl.
I
You
am.
must be
I'm so
compensating for
catty.
something in your life.
Yeah, my stunning personality. Like, I'm not gonna be like, no, you gotta have some edge to you. Oh my God, speaking of mean girl, this is so funny. So my friend Emily posted a TikTok of like, and it was like the caption was something like the golden era or whatever. And it was like OG YouTube, like IMAX, like we were all like children. And one of the girls, I'm not going to name this. You can go to Emily. You can figure out who I'm talking about. Emily June. Head on over to her TikTok. Give her some engagement. Go follow her. She's a wonderful skincare brand. I love her to death. But there was one person in there that lots of people were commenting like, oh my God, that person, like whatever happened to them. I like, do not remember them. And I commented on it and I go, still trying to figure out why she blocked me. And someone commented back and was like, I don't blame her. You always gave off mean girl vibes. And I was like, for sure. Liked it. You know, here's the thing. People think that I am like mean. And I will say that like, this is like, someone left a review once where it was like, I'm in my like cunt era or my bitch era or whatever. Like, this is like the evolution. Like, this was not how I was born. Like, I have been molded to this way. And like, this is, I hope we all achieve crotchety, angry, yelling, asshole old person before we've gone gray. Like, why are we waiting until the sunset, the winter of our life to like really tap into that energy?
To your realness.
Yeah, it's a shame. Why wouldn't I embrace that sooner? Give myself more years with that attitude.
Right, because when you don't have that attitude, it's more like you're just pretending.
Uh-huh. And I'm not a faker. Welcome to Don't Blame Me, starring Princess Diana. And do you want to be Princess Diana or do you want to be someone else?
I want to be Princess Mia Thermopolis. Is that what her name was?
Wait, give me the full name.
I don't know it.
Amelia Mignonette Rinaldi Thermopolis, Princess of
Genovia. She's a queen now, though, right?
I guess.
In the second movie, does she become queen?
I don't know, because I don't feel like they killed Julie Andrews.
No, you're right.
I don't want to talk about Julie Andrews aging.
Yeah, that one will hit.
That one's right now. My top have been RBG and Chadwick.
And Betty White.
Very sad, yes, but Betty White, like I didn't watch like Golden Girl and that stuff. Like,
yeah, I watched Mary Tyler Moore and Golden Girls, and like I watched a lot of that old stuff that used to be on Nick at Night, and so yeah, she was a constant part. Even though I wasn't alive when she was on a lot of that stuff, she was still a constant part of my childhood.
Yeah, shit's sad. Okay, wow,
Yeah.
Let's really just change the subject and pivot to like some fun stuff.
Yeah.
What did you get up to this weekend?
I went to a pool.
Ooh, baby.
Had some fun. Little funsies.
In the sun?
That was on. I did have fun. Actually, it was overcast, so not really.
It's true. It was pretty overcast.
It was very
this weekend.
overcast on Saturday. And then Sunday, I went to a ping pong tournament
What the fuck?
hosted by Allison Raskin.
Of course. I'm less shocked now. I was like, did you go to a celebrity ping pong tournament?
No. But it was a lot of people. There was a whole like scoreboard thingy, like a tournament bracket. And she and her boyfriend, of course, won because they practice at home. So,
well, yeah. Why would you host an event if you're not going to win the event?
Right. Exactly.
That checks out to me.
Mm-hmm. And it fits her that the winner got a very large bottle of hand sanitizer.
I love that.
But since they were 1 and 2, they beat he beat her, but also she has a knee injury, so
yeah, I feel like that was actually really rude of him to beat her. That's pretty fucked up.
Then they had like a playoff between 3 and 4 for who would get the big sanitizer and the smaller sanitizer.
So we had a eventful weekend, and I'm not going to name drop Matz's mom's name in case she doesn't want it on the podcast. But if you are listening, just turn off. This is not like a sexual thing at all. But this was something, it was a homeowner thing that Matz and I were quite embarrassed about. And I know for a fact he does not want you to know that we did this.
Why don't you just say it's a sexual thing so she will for sure cut off?
It's fair. Okay, let's pretend it's a sexual thing. We'll keep all of this in. just don't listen. Or if you do, we will exchange a knowing glance, but do not bring it up to him.
You listened, but you didn't hear.
Yeah, exactly. You are not allowed to hear what I'm saying. So our house is built in 1940. It's very old. I love it so much. It's the reason why we got it is as all these like original features. It's like our dream, exactly what we wanted. And for the longest time, if you've been watching my vlogs, I have been trying or waiting for us to install curtains in our bedroom. The first time we did it, I fucked up and had Mats hang them way too low and they just didn't look good. And so he had to patch the holes, spackle them, paint, and then we did them over. And so then we did them higher. And as like, you know, Mats like took a break. He went to go get lunch with a friend. And I was like really adamant. I was like, change your clothes. Like you've been like doing work stuff and like wash your hands. Like, and I was really big on us both wearing like eye protection and masks when we were doing this. Someone fucking like responded to my story and they were like, take that mask off, you fucking idiot. And I'm like, what? Do you think that people only wear masks for COVID? Like, do you think woodworkers don't wear you're a fucking idiot. You're all trying to breathe in this shit. Like, this is so stupid. But so, like, there was a part in my brain that, like, you know, knew that we have lead paint and that we should be taking those like precautions. But it was just the quietest little voice in the back of my head that was saying that. So we didn't look up ahead of time, like how to, you know, drill a hole when you have like lead paint. Like the whole thing with lead paint is if it's undisturbed, similar to asbestos, if it's undisturbed, it's fine. Like that's why you can paint over lead paint. You don't have to like strip it and repaint. Like you just have to paint over it and you're fine. And the exception does come from lead paint dust, which is when it gets through all of it and you do end up disturbing it. And so we had done all of this. It was like sweaty. We were hot. Like it had just been a whole day of this shit. They're also not totally even. And I'm like, you know what? It has to be fine. Like I have to be okay with it. And I am. And so as we're getting ready to clean it up, Mats is like about to go out with the broom. And I go, hold on. I'm going to like read a little bit because it's not like normal, like dust. Like it's kind of like, it's a little bit more like sawdust because it also goes through like the plaster on the walls. And so it's just a little bit thicker. And I was like, I don't know if we should be doing this in our vacuum. Like, I don't know. Dust is it's a thing. And so I look it up and there's this like 13-page LA City protocol on how to do this. And we have done none of it. Like we have done none of the precautions.
What is it? Because now I'm like paranoid from.
So here's the thing. It's when it comes to like the actual like harm and fear of it. I did a lot of research because Mats is a little bit of a hypochondriac. And so he started getting like really fucking worried. And I like was researching. And the reason why lead poisoning was like predominant years and years ago was the lead paint that we had in homes was one of the many factors of lead that was everywhere. So like leaded gas. So like it was in absolutely everything. And so it also takes a long time of heavy, constant exposure. It takes years of constant, heavy exposure to show that there. And it's having lead paint now in our houses, we would also have to have constant heavy exposure in so many other areas that like is not how we operate anymore in order to develop it. And also the only people it really affects are kids and people who are pregnant. And so, you know, that's like, we're not in like the groups that are like the most susceptible to it. But I did see this thing on Reddit that like someone was like freaking out about a similar thing. And the person was like, and like, you can go get a lead test, like at the doctor, they can like run it. Like you without a doubt be fine. Like at this point, like, cause I showed the picture of the lead dust pile. He goes, you probably have to snort that in order for it to like actually affect anything at this. Like, it's not as much as it is. But so then we like had to go to, we like didn't, which there was not a lot of prep work done. And that is a constant thing that the conversation, like Mott's and I both need to compromise. He is like power through, let's get this done. Like, I'm going to figure it out by doing it sort of thing. And I'm someone who like, I want to research every possible outcome. I want to research everything to the point where like, I'm paralyzed by so much information that I can't even start it. Like, I can't use a sticker because I'm like, well, I have to figure out where I put the sticker. Like, and then I put the sticker here and then it's permanent here. Like, I have a hard time with that. So like, we both have to compromise and like we need to do just enough research that we can feel confident to then execute said task. But like, we didn't strip the bed. We had like all of our clothes. We had been like walking around the house with it. Like, it had been like our tools. We didn't close the windows. We didn't like tape off the doors. Like, our rug was just kind of like pushed back a little bit. And so we had to like go to Target like right before it closed. We both like hopped in the shower, threw everything in the washer, and we had to like buy special detergent that has like all of this shit in it. And we had to do like all of that and like change the sheets, and it was an ordeal. And Moss was like essentially convinced that we were going to wake up the next morning and we were both going to have like two heads and like be like completely turned into monsters.
Well, the reason I asked is because, you know, the whole debacle with my ceiling, saying my house was built in the 40s as well. And there's still like, I know most of the remnants are from him sanding when they came and fixed it, and it was sanding and like patching the other part that's not there anymore. But still, all that did fall on the ground. I would
order a lead kit. Yeah. Like, you can order it online or you can get it from a hardware store and then send it to your landlord if it's there. And then you should get some, like at least some money off your rent for a bit, because that's hazard.
Yep. But
it is just... It was just one of those things that like the little, again, if we were inside out, that small part of my brain that is about remembering things and reason that usually does not exist was there, just so quietly whispering into my head. And it was just overpowered by the rest of it. So that was our wildly eventful day. And
I'm going to add this to my to-do list. So
I naturally broke out in hives. I don't think from touching the paint, I think just from anxiety about it, which is a thing that obviously happens to me in general. So, but I kept telling Muggs because he was like so like upset with himself, and I kept being like, of all of the things for us to like, it's inevitable.
As a podcast network, our first priority has always been audio and the stories we're able to share with you. But at Realm, we also sell some pretty cool merch, and organizing that was made both possible and easy with Shopify. When you think about successful businesses like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, an often overlooked secret is the business behind the business that makes selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's because nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret that's definitely worth talking about is that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. That's more happy customers and way more sales going. If you're hoping to grow your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
As new homeowners, I mean, I think when you do anything new, like parent, like you move, you travel, you do anything for the first time, like you're going to mess up. Like it's inevitable. You don't learn unless you make mistakes. And I was like, of all of the things for us to like make mistakes for, this is one with the least consequences. Like if this isn't like asbestos, which is like not about a long period of time and like constant heavy exposure. Like this, there's a lot of other things that could have been worse, but we're just waiting for the curtains to come back from the dry cleaner, and maybe we got a little bit of lead poisoning, but I will now not have the sun blaring into my face in the morning, and that is priceless. Okay, but it did make me feel better when someone said you literally would have to snort at this point in like how much lead there, because there used to be lead in like skillets and spatulas and like all the cooking utensils and in our water and our pipes and our gasoline, and so they were like paint was like the thing that they regulated that is still is in houses now. And so like, that's why we hear about it. Like all the other factors were eliminated like as a whole. So that's why.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was our weekend. And I guess I should introduce you to what the show is. It's an advice show. And you might be wondering, how are these two visionaries, muses, absolute 10 out of 10 straight hotties, how are they also so smart when they're so hot? Like, how is that fair? First of all, it's not fair.
It's not. I'm not sorry. I can't even say I'm sorry, but like, you're right. It's a burden. It's like, it's a full-time job, to be honest, that you get all the benefits, but no, like there's no pay.
No.
There's no, you don't get healthcare with it, but we're still putting in the work, existing in these bodies with, well, I was gonna say these asses. You're with dad ass at you with. I got long legs. These legs. I was gonna say them legs though.
Them legs.
Them yams.
And these brains. And some might say we should be walking around with caution signs. Caution: hazardous material will make you jizz your pants. We are qualified because we fucking said so. And this is a podcast. And why do we have to defend our qualifications when men get up here and claim that they are alpha men, when in reality, they are just virgins who can't drive? We will be taking no further questions except the calls that you have and the entire premise of this podcast. So you call in, you leave a voicemail, and you tell us what's happening in your life that you would like our wise advice from. I didn't say that I was good at grammar. I just said I was hot and big brained. And, sometimes big brains, there's some dead space. There's some dead air. There's some like useless dormant parts. And that's okay. So if you want to call in, give us a ring-a-ding. Leave us a voicemail at 310-694-0976. International listeners, you can send us an audio message at meghanpodcast@gmail.com. We go over this in every episode. So if you listen all the time, I'm so sorry, but not at all, because you get to hear a different variation of how I say it. But you got to let us know your age. If you would like to let us know your pronouns and the other people involved in the story, please do. We keep it all anonymous. We do ask that you write everything down, all of the information. The more information we have, we can give you like the best advice possible, but you only have 3 minutes. So write it down, then pull out your phone or a sundial and time out how long.
A sundial would not be accurate, okay?
What's that thing? Hourglass. I get them mixed up. I don't know why. Maybe because they're two words. Sundial, hourglass.
But they both do tell time. It's just that the sundial, it's not gonna be in seconds.
You got to get a new age sundial. You got the Apple sundial XL.
Did you see they have a car coming out?
I don't know why in a society where we have watched and championed the very rightful success of the Transformers franchise, we would willingly get into these robot cars without interviewing and making sure that they are like Bumblebee and they are good Transformers. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Someone on Reddit made a joke that this will be the first Apple product with Windows, and it made me chuckle.
That's good. Mots would love that joke. That is funny. I need to stop touching my boobs. Speaking of,
You do it
watch
all
our
the time.
Patreon. I know.
It's just who you are. Just touch them.
If anybody wants to see what it's like when you're just like not masking, watch the video versions of this podcast, because I forget that people watch this, and I am just, I am not shielding anything. Like I'm doing the weird thing I do with my mouth, and when I put my top lip up to my nose, like I'm doing all the things, and I'm also touching titties, but mine exclusively.
I want to say that I feel like when I watch the video back, I feel like people think that like I'm looking at my phone all the time, but my phone is over here. I am pressing my nails into my legs so I can see the little marks that it makes. I'm not looking at my phone. So I just want to give that as well.
Anybody ever wanted to have a seminar on like what quote unquote active listening is, you just see us fiddling around doing everything, and then our face is just going, huh? What? We're just constantly giving the facial expressions. So, okay, under 3 minutes, write it down, time it out. To make sure, because you have to be under 3 minutes or else you will be cut off. And that is for both the phone call as well as the audio message. We just will not use or choose that audio message. Has to be 3 minutes. So practice a couple times. And then when you call or record, literally just read. Just read. You don't have to ad lib. Like you don't have to do any of that. Have to be 18 or over, or have your parents' permission. If you're going to be upset with some of the advice that we give you if you call in, please then go leave a review on the podcast app and make it abundantly clear that you are the caller who's upset, because that's always a good time.
And leave it twice, but under different names, but write in the same way and start it the same way about how you've been following Meghan forever.
And give like context clues that you think make it seem that it's not you, but then actually narrow it down to one person, and then make it abundantly clear to cross-reference the information and see that, you know, you're very honest in your call, and I commend you for that, and it is shown in your digital footprint.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you want to be mad at anyone, you're more than welcome to be mad at us, but if you want to come for the lovely humans in our Facebook group, I will rip you to shreds. I will, because the good people of that group, and those are active members and participants, they care about people. They are invested in people's lives. They want happiness and success. And if you can dish it and you cannot take it, and then you take your anger out on those lovely humans, I will rip your asshole open into, then you are two halves of one person.
All right.
I hope that was a good visual for all of you. People are like, what the fuck?
They can figure it out.
And I'm also like, she's gonna pretend that she's not listening anymore, and I'm like, and that's always my part. I am done. Next time. I can't believe you would talk about me like that. Oh, I thought you were done. I thought you stopped listening.
Why are you still here? Yeah.
You lost.
We don't have an update because we're unavailable and unprofessional. Just joking.
They're going to be so upset. They sent the most professional email. Melissa's reading it, and I was like, oh my, holy. What? Yeah. Do you work in HR? Like, this was like, it was such a...
And we're like, we're the most unprofessional people. All right, here we go.
Hi, Meghan and Melisa. I'm 27, she, her, and I've worked for the corporate office of a national retailer for about 5 years now. I've been promoted 3 times so far. I actually really enjoy the creativity I have in my current role. I have good benefits and just earned an extra week of vacation for being here 5 years. And my boss is actually great. My problem is that when COVID happened, they sold our old office and relocated to a smaller one that does not fit everyone. At that time, we were told we needed to get a permanent home office set up because we would never be going back to full-time in the office. We would be hybrid once COVID restrictions and stuff loosened up and it was safer for us to go in. So I spent a lot of money to get like a comfortable desk chair, a desk, all of that stuff. And I actually was able to work with my doctor to stop taking my antidepressants because working from home was such a game changer for my mental health and work-life balance. In April, they got more strict on our hybrid schedule, and since then we've been required to be in office on a 2-day, 3-day week schedule. We were told the last week that beginning in September, we will be required to come into the office full-time every day of the week, but they're not able to confirm if we will have permanent workspaces. They just keep telling us there's plenty of seating areas available. By that, they mean in our cafe and the couches and chairs they set up on each floor of the office. Because my position and many of my colleagues' positions are associate manager levels and creative roles, we require more than one screen to work efficiently. If I'm sitting at a couch, which I don't even do at home, I can't do that. Whenever I bring this up, I'm told to wait it out and see what happens, because once we are all in office, they'll see that it's not going to work. I'm not really sure what to do. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of and that I've been lied to for 2 years, being told that we did great transitioning to work from home and that we would be permanently working hybrid. And now I'm just not sure if I should wait it out and see, or if I should look for another job. Really don't know what to do. So if you guys could give any advice, that would be great. And I appreciate it. I love you guys and your podcast, both of them.
Look for a new job.
Here's the thing, like with large corporations, the people that are making these decisions are usually the people that aren't there day to day. And so the people that you're talking to that are saying, you know, wait it out and see, I believe that they are well aware that this is not going to work, but they can't say it because they're not allowed to say it and will probably get in trouble if they actually say it. And so the wait it out and see is they don't want to be there either. So what they're doing is that they're doing exactly what they're saying. They're saying, we're going to try this for a week and it's going to fail. And we're going to show the people upstairs, essentially, that aren't really up there, that we can't do this and we're going to go home. And so regardless, I think that you should look for a new job, but corporate, because at first I was going to ask, is this a office located in my hometown? Because they were doing a similar thing, but I know that they are actually building new offices and aren't selling their old offices. But they kind of did the same thing too. And then once people got there, then they were like, okay, this was wrong, and then changed how things were done. And I think with any big company, it's going to be more of the same thing, unless it is a job that is specifically full-time work for home, and that's what you're hired to do. So and I think you should, I think people that work in corporate America should be moving from company to company anyway, because that's how you actually like move up. Because if you stay at the same company, then you get like good at that job, and they don't want you to actually move away from that but they do love when you leave and you get more skills and then come back. And so I do think, look for a new job, but if you do wait it out, it will most likely turn into you guys working from home anyway.
Yeah. I mean, so I agree with that. I think that you can only know what the corporate mentality is if they've ever said, like, we're all going to get through this together, we're a family kind of thing. The thing with places going back, people going back into offices like full time, and I can only talk with this in like proxy from like friends and stuff who've done this. Like, I obviously am not in like corporate America, but a lot of the narratives for subpar working conditions have been, this is a learning experience for all of us, and like we're all making adjustments and we're all doing blah blah blah. And it's coming from like man behind the curtain talking, who like is completely unaffected by this, but is trying to do we are family, we're rallying together as like an excuse to set your expectations and your standards lower for your job without any adjustment on like your schedule or like your pay or things like that. And so I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is, like you said, that this has been working from home has been like the biggest game changer with your mental health. And that is something that like only you can know what you and your doctor like together, like having a conversation about what is your bandwidth. I think that you should start looking for a new job, and I don't think you necessarily should rush or accept a job that you like don't really like or doesn't really interest you or intrigue you or you really want, like just to get one before the September. I don't think you should do that. I think you should be very intentional like with it, and only get a new job if it's something that if it excites you. Like if you would rather do anything in your power to stay where you are and like stay at this company, then I think that like you can only know for your mental health what is that threshold and that time period of figuring this out, because they're trying to figure out what works for them with a work home hybrid or just in the office thing. But you know what works for you, and this has worked for you. And so I, at this point, would just reach out and just be like, I don't know what kind of contract you have or what it's a contract, right? You don't have, well,
if you're an employee, then you most likely don't have a contract.
Yeah. So then I would have like a.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone. So we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
It was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural then and now.
Sit down with your boss and just be like, I know where you're at. I know where like the goals of the company and they're moving at. Like, this is my goal. I want to work from home. And if I'm not able to work from home full time, I would like to do a hybrid kind of thing. And I think you just need to figure out what is your threshold for what you can do. Because I agree with Melissa. Like, I do think it's inevitable that they will see that it doesn't work. And if your company has shown previously that they are receptive to employee feedback, if it takes them until like, I hate that shit where I'm just like, I know my job better and I know what I need better than anyone else. So like, if you can't anticipate what I need based on me telling you that, you have to see it for yourself. That's infuriating, but it is kind of just the hoops that like you have to jump through and things that happen. So if you have faith that like they are receptive to this stuff once they see it in practice, I think that you need to then have like maybe a conversation with your boss of being like, for September, once we start in September, I am gonna like, or you don't even have to have it with your boss, but like with yourself, like I'm gonna give it a month. That's what I can do. That's what my doctor and I have decided. And I'm gonna work full time in the office for a month. And if they're not able to figure it out then I am going to just start more actively pursuing other job opportunities. And I'm going to try and do more work from home part-time. But I always think in general, when a corporation or any job, whether a big company or a small company, is kind of calling the shots and saying what they're going to do, if you are in good standing at your company, I don't think it can ever hurt for you to ask for some like more specifics or some more clarity from someone directly and let them know like what you're looking for and where you're at. They might not cater to it or change anything, but I do think that like expressing that and saying that that's something you're interested in, it keeps in people's minds. So if they're like, oh shit, we are way too overcrowded. I remember that they like, let's just say your name is Lauren. I remember that Lauren had mentioned that time. You can even just be like, hey, I know that it's going to be pretty crowded for a while. If you if we're going back to hybrid at any point, or if you need a longer rollout and you can't have everyone in the office at any point, I am loving working from home. I'm so much happier. I'm so much more productive. You can have me be the very last one in. Like if you ever need someone to work from home, like I can do that. So then if something occurs and comes up, that's in the back of their head of someone that they know wants this kind of thing. I don't think intentionally communicating stuff with your superior, who is someone you have like a trust, if it's someone you have a trusted relationship with, I think just communicating something that you would like to see and hope for without like demanding for it and expecting it, I do think that it doesn't really do any harm, and that they can potentially, I don't know, everyone I know who's had to go back to work when they've done like full office, then they've been like dialing back, and they do reach out. They start with the people who they know prefer to work from home. And I also do have a little bit of a sensitivity about this, because I do have a fear that usually creatives get fucked in these situations because people don't know what goes into creative jobs. And so, yeah, having multiple monitors, that is something you need. You need ample workspace. You need like all of this other stuff. And if you, usually the creative departments at corporations, even if they're like creative based companies, like the finance and will be a larger department usually than the creatives, even if it's a creativity based thing. And those people will usually be an afterthought and kind of pushed into a corner, when in reality, like the resources that they need aren't necessarily conducive with a typical like 9-to-5 cubicle job. So I think I do get worried that if they haven't been meeting your needs before, I don't know that they're going to do it now when they feel like they can play victim to a pandemic.
Yeah.
But my friends who work in like creative spaces in more of like the corporate world, like Melissa said, like switching companies can be really good, especially when you've been at one place for a long time. You kind of have a
Not
niche.
even just like creative, anything.
Oh yeah, totally. I don't know many people who aren't creatives, but like you have a specialty and you have a niche, and that not only like will getting a new job in like a new field will not only like expand your marketability for future jobs and like your pay and all of that, but also like it's way less monotonous, and like you know that it's nice to be able to switch things up and might make something a little more fun and exciting. And you could, for a new job, you can negotiate in your contract, I'm going to work from home. I will come into the office like once a month, or I will come into the office for reviews. I'll come into the office for blah, blah, blah. But you can get that stuff in writing. And I think that applies to like anyone who's like found that their current working conditions, like working from home, has been like a lot better. I think if you're at a place where you can look for a new job, I always think it's better to negotiate what you know works for you versus hoping that like other people anticipate what works for you and that aligns with what they want to do. You got to like protect your mental health and your physical health in like the workforce. And I don't like the responsibility that is on like us as individuals, but I think that you have, if you have the ability to like kind of craft it around what works best for you, you should do it.
Agree. All right. Next call.
Hi, Melissa and Megan. I'm calling in regards to my best friend. Let's call her Bella. Bella is 22 and uses she, her pronouns. I am also 22 and use she, her pronouns. Here's a little background information on the situation. My partner and I have been dating for about a year and a half now. We have been doing long distance and have visited each other consistently over the course of the relationship. In long distance relationships, it is important to make a goal or an end date for the distance. We have discussed where I live and where she lives and have come to the conclusion that it would be most beneficial to reside where she is from. I live in a small city in the Midwest and she lives in a big, well-known city. I feel like I could grow as an individual in her city as well as have both of us grow in our careers. This is where my friend comes in. She's supportive of my relationship and doesn't dislike my partner by any means, but every time I try to bring up moving out of the state, she always shuts me down. She always brings up reasons such as it's very expensive, you'll have to start over with making friends, etc. While I understand her concerns, I can't help but feel a little hurt I don't have her support on such a big decision. If the roles were reversed, I would just want her to be happy at the end of the day. I have thought about some reasons why I think she reacts this way. I know that we are each other's closest friends, and it can be scary to have your closest friend move away. However, I feel like this is a part of growing up. Your friends are going to move away or go on a different path. If the roles were reversed again, I obviously would be devastated, but also extremely excited for her new chapter in life. The advice I'm looking for is how to tell her that I have made this decision and that it will be happening in January of 2023. She's kind of made it impossible to open up to her about these sort of things, and I hate that I'm so nervous to tell her. I've told pretty much in my entire family and most of my friends, all of which are happy for me and are excited that I will get out of this small city. Any advice you have for me is greatly appreciated. I am sensitive, so keep that in mind. She is a Leo, and I'm Pisces. Thank you in advance. Love the show. Bye-bye.
I mean, this is hard.
With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode, we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
I feel for your best friend. It just seems like they're sad. They're really sad and they don't know how to put that aside. And to me, when she's saying things like, you're going to have to start over, you're going to have to make all new friends, that to me is her saying, I'm going to have to start over. I'm going to have to make all new friends. It's just prime projecting for me that's what she's really worried about in her own life. And so I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I said that I think that I think it makes sense that we've said this on here so many times that long distance relationships need an end date. And, we obviously don't know the ins and outs of your relationship, but you've been dating for a year and a half and then moving for a partner. It seems like you do really think this city is going to be really good for you and stuff. I think I don't know. I feel like we get a lot of calls from the friend point of view. So maybe is this something that you do? Is this something that you are, do you feel like you're someone who is really independent, or do you feel like you're someone who really values the opinions of other people around you and you're not necessarily proactive in making decisions that put you out of your comfort zone until someone else brings it up and then you're oh wow, that's a really good idea. That's not a bad quality trait at all. And I hate when people refer to those kinds of people as oh, you're passive, you're a follower, when in reality those people usually are just people who live in the moment more. And then there are people who are planners and think about other stuff, and then you're oh cool, yeah, maybe I do want to move and do this kind of stuff. So if this is something that you say that she really likes your partner and that they get along and there's no issue with that, I think that if it is just a missing you thing, I would spend some quality time together where you're not talking about the move and you're not doing that stuff, and you're spending some quality friendship time together. And I think I would schedule that a good amount, and so it doesn't feel when you're letting her know I'm going to be moving January 2023, it doesn't feel and every moment up until then, this quality time that we have is going to be about me moving and about me and my partner. It's going to be about all of this stuff, because I think it's, you mourn a friendship when you can mourn a friendship when someone your best friend gets in a relationship. And I think if you are present and you're spending good quality time together, I think that feeling of everything's changing and everything's ending and everything's fleeting, that feels a lot more frantic and a lot more scary when it feels it's already happening before it's even happened. So I think before you tell her, I would just, and maybe you already are spending a lot of time together, and then that would be the case that I would just bring it up straight up. But I think if you haven't been spending some quality time together, I would do that at least once or twice before you bring it up, and then make a conscious effort and point to be I think I want to make sure that up until then, we schedule a weekly date to hang out. We have this to we have these things. I thought we could take an art class together, doing things that feel you're fostering a friendship too, because a move is a really big thing. And especially moving with a partner out of state and all of that, that I think that's not even just for your best friend. That's for you too. And I think she's going to miss you, but I think you'll probably miss her too. And if you can spend some quality time together, I think that will ease her anxiety and simultaneously prevent some of that, like, you know, natural sadness that you'll have from like leaving.
As someone who moved around a lot during their childhood, I guess moving is just kind of different for me. I left friends a lot as a kid, and this was before social media was around. I mean, we still had at a certain point, then there was like AOL, but I just kind of see this as like, even when I moved to LA, it was like my friends were cheering for me and wanting me to succeed to leave, and it feels kind of, I guess she's like trying to protect herself by projecting these things onto you, but it just, to me, it seems like she's not in your corner. Like, she doesn't want what you want. She's kind of trying to rain on your parade, and I just don't think that's a supportive friend. That just doesn't come off well to me. And again, she might just be projecting and protecting herself, but this just doesn't seem like a true friend to me, someone that doesn't want to root for your success.
I wonder if she's never moved and the caller has. Do you know what I mean? Because like you have very similar, like to me, I didn't have any friends who ever moved, like, and I didn't move, and so that is a much more, I don't know, like a kind of like scary sort of like final kind of thing. But like the way that she's talking about it is similar to kind of like, this happens, like this is life. I wonder if she moved at least once or twice.
Yeah. But like, even when you moved, I guess you and Sydney were separated more because you went to different colleges. But like, even then, like, was there anything like, were either of you like just disappointed, instead of like, we know this is going to be different for our friendship, but we're not disappointed in it, we're rooting for the other one?
I mean, I think that if one of us had gone to school on the East Coast, that would have been devastating for either one of us. Like, that would have been really, really hard.
But was it like in a way that was like trying to talk you out of it?
No, because we were going through it at the same time, and like we just didn't really talk about it. But I will say, like, she was not into me dropping out of college. Like, she was really, really, really opposed to that. And that's obviously different because like we're not at the same college, we're like in different places, but you know, it's a large change because it's not, oh, we're coming home for that. We're both going back to Marin for the same Thanksgiving breaks and the same Christmas breaks. And it is different. Like, it's different. And I did definitely like live my life for like the first year after I dropped out, like I was in college, and like trying to come home during the same time to like not miss out on what my like high school friends were doing, and trying to like have that sense of normalcy. That is also different because it is dropping out of school. But I mean, pretty much everyone tried to talk me out of it. And I, at the time, definitely read it as not supportive. But as I've got older, what I realized was like, oh, we fear things that we don't know. And like, this was not what you did. And this is not something that you know. And this is also not something that you can give me advice on. This isn't something that you can relate to. So if like things come up in my life that is happening here, because I've moved and I'm like living on my own, like as an adult in a big city, and I'm not in a college town going to the formals and doing the same things that you are, I think we can always feel scared by things that we don't know. And that when someone takes a path that we're not taking, sometimes people might think that you will fail on said path. But I think when you succeed, or if you succeed on that path, it does make people question the path that they're also on. And I think that could apply here as well. But I don't disagree with you in the sense that like I think there's, even if it's by accident, I don't think she's being her friends. I don't think Bella's being supportive.
Yeah. So I think the other moves until I moved to Los Angeles were all with my family. But even just in talking about how I was going to prepare to move, people, like a lot of people, they're like, yeah, okay. But they didn't think I was actually going to do it until I actually packed my car and left. And I think how you tell her is that you just have to tell her like, hey, I've decided I'm moving. I'm leaving in January. These are the reasons. And honestly, like, to me, like her not supporting you, I feel like you shouldn't have to give a reason, but she's going to, I mean, she knows that you're moving, to be with your partner, but also like there's other factors on why you're going to your partner and they're not coming to you. And I guess explaining those things, for me personally, I wouldn't feel a need to explain those things, but it's just because of how Bella is already reacting. I think you're going to have to, in the same way that you made plans with your partner to meet up, maybe going about it like, hey, in like March, let's get together for this, or like we'll plan to do something again in September or whatever. Just making future plans to do things together could help. Or you maybe even like, when I move, do you want to come with me to like help me move my stuff and help set things up? So I think including her is a way to make her feel less hurt, but just making sure that you let her know that like we're still going to be friends. The situation around our friendship will change, but luckily we're in a time where we have FaceTime. We can virtually do things. We can call each other. There's virtual games we can play. Like, just making sure you're including her in your plans can also help alleviate some of that.
Yeah. And like, let her know that you're going to miss her. Like, I think there's a really large emotional aspect about this. And like, excitement is an emotion and sadness is also emotion, and they can also coexist. And I think right now you are really excited and you're angry and frustrated that she's just sad. But I think at some point you're also going to be sad. And I think that that's very normal and like very okay. But I think recognizing the full spectrum of emotions and that you're going to be going through them between now through when you move and after you move. And so I think a lot of the time when people are kind of acting out and we know it's from sadness, a lot of the time people are doing that and not feeling comfortable just saying, hey, I'm really sad, because they don't think that you're sad. And that it can be something like, I think being honest with your own, like vulnerable and honest with your own emotions can be instrumental in letting other people know that they can also be vulnerable with like their emotions and feel validated in that. And so, when you think about the feelings behind actions and stuff, telling her that you're also going to be sad, then you can both just talk about how you're going to be sad together. And it doesn't have to be this, I'm going to be angry with you and let you know that you've hurt me, as opposed, because I think that you are I think that you were hurting me and you're not going to be sad that you're going to move at all. And this is something that you're doing to me, when in reality, like, I don't think you need to be kind of like the strong person who's like, I don't think you saying that you're going to be sad and you're going to miss her and you're going to miss parts of like where you are, I don't think that negates the choice you should make in moving. And I don't think it negates like how excited you are and that this is the right choice for you. Like, those feelings all exist together. And I think if you can recognize that with her, she might not weaponize those feelings of hurt to you. But if she does, then that sucks. And that this is a friendship that has run its course that maybe wouldn't have run its course until a couple years from now. And she was just not going to be supportive in other life decisions moving forward. And this is the time that your friendship is over. But if you don't think that there's ill intent coming from this, I think it's just like misdirected sadness. And I think there's something really disarming when someone tells you that they're sad about something that you don't think that they're sad about, and that you feel like you're the only like one in your emotions for. And there's something really like comforting about that. And then it's a feeling you can move past. Because if you don't work through sadness, then it just becomes anger and it becomes resentment and it just eats away at you. It's not a fleeting feeling. It's like a stewing feeling. But this is exciting for you.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too. All right, let's take a break.
Woo! We will be back. Oh my gosh, we're back. That was so fun. What did you all do during the break?
listen to the ads and supported the show.
Did you scratch your nuts? Did you tighten your ponytail?
Only the right nut.
Yeah, fuck that left nut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, roll the tapes.
Hey, Meghan and Melissa. First off, love the podcast, and I really want to get y'all's thoughts on this. This should be pretty fast. I am switching jobs and becoming a freelance audio engineer, and I just really would love y'all's thoughts and advice on what you guys do to keep yourself productive when you don't have a normal 9-to-5 job, especially because I have ADHD like Meghan, and sometimes I do struggle with hyperfixation, but then also sometimes I struggle with motivation. And I would just love to hear y'all's thoughts, and anything would be really helpful. Thank you, guys.
First off, send me your resume.
I
Second
was just going to make that joke.
I'm not joking. Second, the thing for me is that I used to try to be very regiment about my work days. Like, wake up at 9 and do X, Y, and Z and blah, blah. That's all part of like the way that corporate jobs or jobs that take place in offices try to brainwash you. And I've learned now that depending on the day, I might want to work differently. And I think just allowing yourself to have the flexibility, if you don't have like a set meeting for that day. I make to-do lists every single day, or I make them at the beginning of the week and then purse out the things that I need to do throughout the week, making the top priority, set meetings or set recordings that I have to be at. And then the next thing is like, if I'm like, for example, this month I'm on a writing deadline for a feature script that I have to have done at the end of this month. So then that is the next most important thing for me. And then the next thing for me is like anything like reviewing edits. I know I have to have that done the day before that the podcast go out. So it's like having those important things. And then if I have meetings, then I only have a set amount of time during the week that I can do meetings. And so I'll be like, this week I only have 3 hours this week that I can have meetings. So then I do have an assistant. I let my assistant know that like, this is how much time that I have this week for meetings. This is how much time I have for this week. This is how much time I have for this week. Do not schedule any more meetings for this week, because one thing that bogs me down a lot is meetings and emails. Another thing with emails is that I make my emails so that I used to like check my emails throughout the day, and now I only check them at the beginning of the day and only at the end of the day, because if I check them throughout the day, that's all I'm going to do is be sitting and responding to emails. And so I was telling Meghan about this earlier with emails. One, I only actually send emails during business hours, even though I might be responding to it at 12 o'clock at night. So with Google, and I'm sure with other email services, you can schedule your emails to go out, because I want to train people, like, just because this email, I used to send them out whenever I was just like awake, and then people would expect me to respond to an email like as soon as I send them. So when you schedule the emails, I make sure I have them all go out at 8 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter when I send the email. I might check it actually like during the business day, but I have it scheduled so then people don't expect me to be automatically responding, unless it's a high priority email that has like an actual response to it. Or another thing is that I make sure that, for me, my anxiety with emails is that if it's too much, it becomes overwhelming for me. And so if I open an email, it doesn't need an immediate response, but I know that it will need a response by X, Y, and Z day, then I will schedule the email to come back to me on that day so that I can prioritize. So you can like hit snooze on your emails and have them come back to you at a certain time. I also, if I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep. That's just point blank. And I've realized that like, I'm not the person that can push through and just do things because they need to be like, I know that it needs to be done, but like if I am not fresh brained on something that needs my brain power, I'm not going to sit there and just like work through it. I'm going to take a nap and then wake up and do it, because then I can actually think about it instead of reading something over and over again because I'm not analyzing it because I'm asleep. So my biggest things are having to-do lists, only answering emails in the morning, knowing exactly what you need to be done for that day and what can be pushed for the next day, having set hours for myself. I'm going to work for me, I will have to work 8 to 10 hours every day, but that doesn't mean I'm going to work those hours straight. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to do other things and then come back to my work. And then making sure I'm eating is another big one. Making sure I'm having breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That is one that I severely struggle with, and is one that I always remember to eat when I'm at your place, because you always will be like, we have to eat now. And I'm like, oh my God, good call. And then I don't feel nearly as bad as I do at the end of the day here. I agree with everything Melissa says. And like, you specifically do not work a normal hour wise, like, but you like have a full work day, just in a, I don't know what time zone, but just a different time zone. And like, you have to know your own productivity hours. And with ADHD, the biggest thing I'll say is ignore all of those fucking hacks on TikTok of like productivity, like how to work from home, like all these, like make sure that you get out of bed, like you do this, you get out of bed, you don't work in your pajamas, like you sit at a desk, you do no. You have to lean into whatever the fuck your brain wants to do that day, because ADHD is, yes, it's inattentive and hyperactive, but it's driven by dopamine. So that's why it's like literally painful to do things you don't want to do. Like your brain is like, I don't want to do that. That feels like stabbing myself in the leg. Like that's the psychological, like that's what your brain says. And that's why it's so impossible to do things you don't want to do. And that's not, your brain's not going to change regardless if you're medicated or not, or you're like working with a therapist. Like that is, being neurodivergent is just like how your brain works, and lean into that. And so listen to it. That is like the constant uphill battle that I have, where like I completely understand like the motivation versus like hyperfixation stuff. And if you can have set days where you know you have to do like something. So for me, like we record the podcast on Tuesdays. That's really helpful for me, because time blindness is a huge one. And that's like within 24 hours, but also within a week and within a month and within a year. I don't have a concept of time. So when I have something that I know I have to be at, and I know I have to do every day, even, I mean, not every day, I have to do during the week, even if I am notoriously and constantly always late for it, like my brain knows that that's like, it separates time. So if you can have that, and it doesn't have to be work related, it can be a workout class, it can be getting coffee with a friend, it can be like just try to have one reoccurring appointment a week if you also struggle with time blindness, because it helps me put like the day and the week and the month into perspective. And embrace multitasking, especially with things that you know that you can hyperfixate on. So something that I hyperfixate on a lot is, you might not have noticed, but you definitely, I really fucking hope you've noticed, but podcast graphics, my own YouTube thumbnails, anything that's kind of like artsy and stuff. Sometimes I will lots of times hyper focus on YouTube stuff, but it will be editing a 10-second clip that like no one will even know that it took me like 7 hours to do. But on those things, when I know that I don't need to do this and this isn't productive, because that's the thing with hyperfixation, you can't control it. If you are hyperfixating on like a project to complete from beginning to end, like that's fantastic. Like lean in, do whatever you need to do to like keep that going. But most of the time, hyperfixation is you're hyperfixating on something that you shouldn't be hyperfixating on, and it's like not productive. It's taking away time from doing other things, and it's like you've been chained to a chair and you can't get out, and like you want to get out but you can't stop, and suddenly the sun goes down. So what I try and do for that stuff is I multitask in a way that like I will have the fucking therapists everywhere who like don't specialize in ADHD are like, no, I have every screen on. I have every screen on in my house. I have a podcast on video that I like to watch, the video version of said podcast. And it's one that like I think is really funny, or I'm going to want to rewind, something that has visual and audio elements to it. So I'm not just listening, I'm looking at it. Then I'm also going to have a fucking game on my phone that I'm playing. And then I'm also going to be doing the work thing I need to be doing on my iPad or on my computer. Like I have multiple different sources of like stimulation going on there that take up like my listening part of my brain, the typing part of my brain, the thinking part of my brain, did I say listening, the watching, like all of my senses. And then I also make sure that like I have really cold water next to me. That's really helpful in like not necessarily fully snapping me out of a hyperfixation, but like I will sit for so long. I will forget to eat. I will forget to breathe. I will be like dripping and covered in sweat. Like my lips will be starting to turn blue because I haven't been breathing like well. Like I'm consciously thinking about that. And because I'm not thinking about it, I'm not passively doing it as often as I should. And I will realize I'm in a really uncomfortable position and my like legs have locked up or my knees or something. So having cold water with like something in I have my giant water bottle if you're watching the video. And the thing about this, I always keep the mouthpiece up and I always put it as close to me as possible so I can just lean over and just take a sip whether I'm not thinking about doing it, but it can kind of bring me back into real life. So that's the thing that like motivation and hyperfixation are just a constant ebb and flow. And it's knowing when to try to redirect, but then also like allotting time for the fact that like it's gonna happen. And the best way for it to happen is for you to have known that it's going to happen and embrace the fact that like it's gonna happen at some point. And so when it comes to like to-do lists and stuff, things that you need to do, knowing how long it takes you to finish a task and knowing that it's completely fine to do a task the day it's due if you're gonna be able to do it on time. Like, and that's okay. So like getting rid of all of the preconceived notions you have about what it means to be like a good employee or like a good worker. You don't have to be early. Like you can do it literally the day of, like that's completely fine. And by knowing that and doing that, if you can do things as they spark interest with you. And like Melissa said, like you don't have to work consecutively. You can be like, oh, this is really fun. I want to do this for a bit. And now I want to move on and do this. You don't have to complete tasks every day. You can just chip away at them. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really helpful because the biggest thing that I find that's really hard for me is that I will try and do something that I do not want to do. And I'm not going to do it. And it's going to be bad. And then I'm getting a shame spiral that I'm upset that I didn't do it. And then I'm going to keep putting it on the next day on the to-do list. And there might have been the next day I might have actually been in the mood to do it. But because I didn't do it the day before and I'm mad at myself, now I'm dreading doing this activity that I might actually like want to do. So for me, a lot of the times that's editing. I'm either really in the mood or I'm really not. And so then I just keep it open on a tab. I keep my Final Cut open on the tab there and I make sure it's like still up. It's not hiding. And I will keep it in the corner and then I see it and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try and do something here. And then I give myself like 5 or 10 minutes. And if I'm not feeling it, then I'm going to exit out and I'm not going to try and do it because then I'm not going to be productive in any task because I'm just failing at accomplishing this task that I'm not going to get done when I can get something else done. So like just going where the dopamine is, and that is something that like it's not going to be a routine. It's going to change day to day. And I think Melissa does a really good job of this. And this is something that like if I had a job more similar to yours, this is what I would do, where it's like you don't work a normal 9 to 5, but you don't allow people to treat you like you don't work a normal 9 to 5. So like everything is contained in that specific way, but I know that's not how you're working. And like, so you don't have to work in the way that you portray that you're working to other people, because a lot of people have a really like binary, very fucking cut and dry way of what they view productivity in the workplace to be. And you do not have to change their minds or their opinions. You can, and it's not a bad thing to package yourself so it appears that you're working within those traditional parameters of the workday, that it's not a bad thing to do at all. And a lot more people do that, I think, than we know, you know?
And I'll also say, like, going on that too, I know that by Friday afternoon, I do not want to work anymore. Like, I don't work on after 2 o'clock on Fridays, I stop working. But that does mean that on Saturday, I'm going to have to do some work Saturday morning. And that's something I've learned about myself, and I'm completely fine with it. I'm still making all my deadlines that I need to make. Also, to even more piggyback off that, setting boundaries for yourself. Like, for example, one of the shows that I work on, they asked me for additional content for them that adds 3 hours onto my work week every week. So this started a couple months ago. They're like, we want to do this. And I said, okay, that's going to be like an additional 3 hours. And I've already told them, like, the days that we record our podcast, those are my longest days. Please don't contact me on that day because I can't, like, if I'm producing another show, I can sporadically, like, check text messages and things. But if we're sitting here talking, I'm not going to be getting text messages. So I said, please don't send me. This is for everyone. Do not send me anything on Tuesdays. I will not be able to respond to you. But for this thing, they were saying that they needed this stuff on Wednesdays. And I said, like I've said before, Tuesdays are my longest days. So I cannot deliver this on Wednesdays. You will get it by Thursday morning, but you will not have it on Wednesday morning. And after I said that to them, they were like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, you have to set firm boundaries when you work freelance, because a lot of people think that means that, like, you could just get it done whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. You might be able to, but you don't have to. And that's not when you never, ever, ever tell, like, someone, like, if someone's having you do something that's, like, above and beyond, or, like, not within the workday parameters or anything like that, you can make it work. Don't make it work, because you set the precedent that is how they can treat you, and also how they can treat everyone. One question I have for you specifically. So would she be working project wise or clocking hours?
It depends on it varies. Like, some people that I work with is like project wise. Yeah. And then some people it's hours, because like there's just different skill sets for everything that I do. So, and different agreements that I have with each person that I work with.
Okay, so I think you, caller, if you are getting paid hourly for any project, set timers on your phone constantly throughout the day while you are working to remind yourself that you are getting paid by the hour. So, like, it's like, I'm going to finish this section, and, like, do it based on, don't be like too ambitious, but, like, do it based on, like, how you can work conservatively. Like, I'm giving myself 45 minutes to do this, set a timer for 15 minutes and be like, am I still on track doing this thing? Or I'm going to set a timer in 10 minutes that I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to set another timer to do that. If you are getting paid hourly, then hyperfixation is your biggest enemy, unless you are powering through. And then at the same time, like, you don't want to, there's a superpower in the hyperfixation, in the rare occurrences that it is starting and completing a project you need to complete, like, beginning to end. And that's super rare. And so on the off chance that happens, that didn't happen. And that didn't happen. And you have to adjust the hours for what is a reasonable thing, because I felt very much like and I don't think anyone did this consciously, but I was called a workhorse from, like, the time I was, like, very young working. And it was like, oh, she's got this. Like, she'll get it done. She can do this. She can read a script in 25 minutes. Like, she can do all, like, X, Y, and Z and all of that stuff. And the process of burnout with ADHD is really different, because it doesn't happen in the same way it does with neurotypical people, because there are no signs. There is no slow decline. It goes immediately from a dopamine, like, everything's fine. This is great. I'm staying up till 3 a.m. finishing this project because I love it, and I haven't moved, and I, like, don't even realize that I haven't eaten. I haven't drank. Like, I haven't moved. Like, my body is in so much pain, but I don't realize it until afterwards. That in corporate America, and also just capitalism in general, gets praised so heavily. You will inevitably crash just because you are human, and you won't know that it's coming, because it's not like, again, it's not like typical burnout where you're slowly being dragged down. It is done really, really quickly, and it feels really great, and then it doesn't. And that's something that is really hard. And I would also, final thing I would say, okay, one quick one. Reward system. Give yourself a reward system. You do something that you don't really want to do or you don't like doing. I'm going to do this until this time when this show comes on, or I'm going to do this while I watch the show. Your reward doesn't have to be after the task is accomplished. You can give yourself the reward while you're doing the task to make the task more enjoyable.
Oh, I feel like there's so many tips, but here's another one is like, some people are like you have to work at a desk to feel like you're doing blah, blah. As an audio engineer, you might have to be at your desk, but I work from my desk and I work from my bed and I work from my couch, and this couch or my living room couch or like my kitchen table, or sit outside. It's just whatever I'm fucking feeling and what my body needs for that day. So like, just do what you want. And, you know, like Megan was saying, like your rewards and stuff, like I have set rewards for myself every day, and mine are like, I'll sit down and I'll watch General Hospital. While I'm doing that, I'm also eating dinner. Like that tells me, like when I'm sitting down to watch General Hospital, that's a like flare in my brain. It's time to eat dinner, and this is when you send all your files for the day. So that's like another thing for me, is that I always have that.
You need to allot days of rest and times of rest, because hyperactivity, ADHD exhausts you, and like hyperactivity will exhaust you, whether that's like hyper focusing or moving around a lot or just your brain racing. You're gonna do like work in spurts and stuff, but like there is effectively like a come down essentially, like at the end of all of that stuff, and needing to know that like you have allotted rest time. And so if you're someone who, do you work better in working for 5 days and then having 2 days of rest? Or are you better of working 5 days and having rest in every single one of those days? Are you better at working 2 days on a rest day, 3 days on a rest day? Like, what does that look like for you? And it might take some practice knowing what specific projects wear you out. So like after this podcast, this is one of my days that like, I'm like, I can't do anything after this.
Yep,
like
same.
If I want to, I have things like on the list that I could get done, and I have them in my like later / extra thing where it's not on the day. So it doesn't feel like I haven't done what I needed to do, but I don't ever put that expectation on myself, because I know I'm dead by the end of like talking for so many hours straight. And so I allot rest as a part of needing to recuperate after tasks, which is also a chronic illness thing too, where it's like allotting in rest after tasks that you know are draining, whether or not that you think that they should be draining or not. Like that doesn't matter what your expectation is or what you think it looks like from the outside. Like if you are drained emotionally, physically, or you're just fucking tired and you're brain dead after you've done a task, that doesn't matter if you feel like it's justified or not. Like it's a fact and you need to allot for it. Otherwise you're going to start the next workday with a completely empty tank.
Exactly. That's like where my midday naps come in too.
Yeah.
So
smart. It is smart.
All right. Next one.
Dear Meghan and Melisa, I just called, but I had more time, so I figured I would add some more details. So I am a 22-year-old Taurus, she, her, and I'm calling about a situation with my boyfriend of almost 5 years, also 22, a Libra, he, him. We love each other very much, and we have a great relationship with minimal disagreements or arguments, except for when it comes to one subject, high school. He never finished his last year of high school because once his counselor informed him that he would not be graduating on time senior year due to missing a credit he needed, he gave up and stopped showing up. He eventually enrolled in an online school program, and he started to do that, but then he stopped abruptly. He self-admittingly struggles to find motivation to do his schoolwork, and that's mostly because he would rather go out and have fun with his friends instead of doing his schoolwork.
He has promised me for the last 4 years that he would finish high school, and he still hasn't done it. I just finished up my bachelor's degree, and I'm going to pursue my master's in the fall. And although I don't expect him to do as much schooling as me, because I truly do understand that school is not for everyone, I do expect him to at least have a high school degree. Of course, I'm looking out for him, but I'm also thinking about myself and our future children, because I think it's eventually going to become a little difficult for him to find a good job with upward mobility without the degree. This subject has caused me much stress and frustration over time, and whenever we have this conversation, he always promises that he'll get it done, and he just never does. It's come to the point where I don't trust anything that he says in regards to this subject. I feel lost, and I don't know what to do about the situation anymore. I've tried to help him, and as someone who comes from a background of education, I really want to help him and set up a timeline and, get an idea of when we can get things done in a feasible way for him. But I know that that's too much, and that I feel like that's too much mothering, and that's icky. But I don't want to leave him, but this is also kind of a deal breaker for me, and I feel like we can't move forward in our relationship until this happens. But I just want to know, am I being too harsh, or am I being too nice? Like, I just don't know. And if you could be nice to me, I'm a little sensitive, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
He either has ADHD or is dyslexic. Like there's something happening. And I don't know if that is a conversation that he's had with anyone. I don't know what's up. Maybe it's just a mental health aspect, but in theory, this is a very easy thing for him to do. But if it was easy in practice, he would have done it. So it's not easy. So there's something there. And I never assume that it is laziness. And I never assume that I also don't think lack of motivation is like a complete sentence. Like that stems from something. Like it always does. And it stems from poor mental health. It stems from so many things. Like you're not born someone who's like not motivated, because motivation is not specific to one aspect of your life. Like it's there in everything. So I think that there's like something else here, because if this was as easy as it sounds, he would have done that. And I think that, I don't know how you broach that subject with him. I think maybe it would just be like, can we talk about, like, not that you need to do this, but like, let's process the fact, like, to be fair, also he's 22 and he found out his senior year before he's graduating that he's not going to graduate on time because he's missing a credit. That's traumatic. That's really traumatic. And I think that like, this might feel like kind of checking a box, but it could be bringing up a lot of traumatic memories for him. Like, what was the reason that he had a hard time meeting those graduation requirements and credits in high school? Because when you're in high school, you're a kid. So a lot of the factors of what affects your schoolwork and your attendance, your punctuation, your everything, a lot of that is things that happen at home. A lot of things are like developmental things, like emotional, mental health things that happen. And if you don't process that, I'm not surprised he hasn't finished it. Like, has he gone to therapy? Like, has he worked through the trauma that comes from finding out your senior year that you're not going to be walking at graduation with your classmates? And like, that's really hard. And slight sidebar, I have a huge issue with administration and teachers in schools who prevent students from walking based on small graduation requirements and things, because that does not breed productivity, nor does it breed someone like kicking their ass into high gear to get something done. It isolates kids from their peers in this moment that is really symbolic versus like actually like technicalities of it. And I think taking away that as like a punishment for anything is like really fucked up and really fucks with you for a very long time. And I think this is kind of a prime example of this, but I'm a little bit curious what he does for work now, because unpopular opinion, I don't think that I think a high school degree is a hoop you need to jump through that in order for a lot of jobs, but jobs that when you talk about having like hierarchy and like working your way up, a lot of the time I think we usually just think of that in corporate America. trade schools are very, very lucrative job positions that can have like for a lot of them, like a large longevity. Like you don't need a high school degree to succeed, but like, I'm assuming you're calling not because you just need him to check this box, but because that this is affecting his current employment and that he is not someone who you would have never known based on his current circumstance that he didn't graduate high school. I think for you're watching that this is holding him back from things he might be wanting to do. But I don't think that you tell him that he has to do this and he has to promise you and make this, because I think if he could, he would have done this by now. So I think it's about unpacking why this happened in the first place and not coming from a judgmental place or anything like that. And you said that you come from an academic background, so he might feel kind of uncomfortable and feeling like you're have very different viewpoints and like worlds and experiences. And so coming from a non-judgmental place to figure out how this happened the first time, because something needs to heal and change and fix in order to actually get through this.
Yeah. And I'm coming at this from like a sensitive place. Like ideally, not having a high school degree, you do not need that to succeed. Like you can have other skills, but most jobs are going to require you to have at least a high school degree or certificate in something. So even let's say like it was a car mechanic, maybe which is very lucrative, and you may not necessarily not need a high school degree, but you will need a trade certification for it. Ideally, right, like if you've been working in something and you learned the craft, then you wouldn't need it, but most places do require either a high school diploma or a certificate from trade school. And so I think I 100% agree with Megan that you need to figure out like the underlying cause. If there's some mental health component for which there most likely is for him not completing his degree, because what this is that the high school system failed him. Yeah. So what that counselor should have done was say, it's one credit. It was one credit that he would have been short. So he stopped finishing. So I'm guessing he needs like his last year plus that one credit. And so what the counselor should have done was say, let's, get into summer school. You can still walk with your classmates. Let's get into summer school. Let's maybe like let me talk to you, figure out like why. But like I said, they failed your boyfriend. So I don't think giving your boyfriend the support and helping him figure out the underlying causes, momming him, I feel like this is just helping him or assisting him in getting whatever support he needs to move forward. Because like I said, you are right. Without a high school degree or some type of trade certificate, there will be no mobility. He will most likely be working a job that pays minimum wage.
Yeah, I think that like you just need to go 100% from that perspective, because I agree with Melissa that it's like without any sort of specialty like trade school certification or without a high school diploma, yeah, he will be working a minimum wage job that doesn't have a trajectory to make a livable wage, truthfully. And you don't need to tell him that. He knows that. And what he knows more than that is right now, like Melissa said, the school system failed him. He probably right now feels like that's inevitable. Even if he finishes his high school degree, he probably thinks that that is just what's going to happen anyways, because he doesn't think that he's capable of being an academic or being something that is in a more rigorous field, because he was failed by his school to make believe that that was his fault, that he was a failure, and he failed his whole future based on circumstances that without a doubt, like I can say with confidence, were probably out of his control when he was 16 and 17 years old. And like that, oh my God, like makes me emotional. It just like breaks my heart that like he is probably like stewing on that as a 22-year-old adult. Like, and that like he like will think that his future is like set in stone from like that decision when you're like, not even decision, like your circumstances when you're 17. And I don't mean to like, I know you said you were sensitive and I don't mean to be accusatory of all, but like, I just need you when you talk to him about it. He knows that shit. And like, he's not just, doesn't just know it as a fact. He knows it. You know it as like this is a switch that can be flipped on and off. He's internalizing this as like a read of his intelligence, his moral character, his dedication, his work ethic, like who he is as a person. This is a personal failure. This isn't just like a check off your list thing. And like, as much as this frustrates you and this annoys you, this keeps him up at night. Like this is a defining part of like his life and his experience. And like Melissa said, like that's not mothering him by supporting him to figure out what, like, let's get to the bottom of this. Because I'm going to bet that I don't think anyone's ever done that. And I think that he probably thinks a lot of this, that he's crazy and a lot of this stuff is in his head and that he's just, you saying like he would rather have fun and go hang out with his friends. Like that
Who wouldn't? Like,
yeah.
I'd rather...
And also like that's the definition of running away from something and like escapism, that of being like, this is painful and uncomfortable to work through and I don't want to talk about it and I don't want to figure this out. No one's tried to figure this out with me. No one's valued it enough to like work with me. And that first failure is that fucking counselor who did that. Like I had a counselor in high school where like I needed chemistry to graduate and I could not take it. I was like having anxiety attacks in her office because I had no friends in the class and I was just like absolutely miserable and I couldn't do it. And she was like, okay, we'll say that you took a summer course. We'll lie. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's fine. And she was always like that. She was not a by the book kind of person because she was like, I'm looking at this kid. Like, she's never going to go into science. Most of these kids aren't going to use chemistry in the future. And like, I'm not going to like let her graduate high school because of this stupid thing. Or I'm going to force her to like completely wreck her mental health for this very arbitrary thing. And like, she had the ability to do that because she was been there for years and like a very, very, very loved person of the school. A lot of people have like fear for their jobs to like not do it by the book. But he was like really, like Melissa said, like he was failed. He was failed, and like unlearning that and like processing that, I think is going to take a lot of time. And I don't think there needs to be a timeline on when that is and when this thing is. And like, shit, maybe he goes through like processes this and realizes this and then is like, I want to do a trade school. I want to do that. I don't want to get my GED right now. I want to do this. And he does that. And then he gets his GED in like 10 years or he never does. Like for you, caller, I think if you can also reframe it in your head that I just don't believe that anyone thinks having kind of like an arbitrary piece of paper, someone who has their degree, if their high school degree or not, is actually a deal breaker for you. I think for you, what your deal breaker is somebody who is taking control of their future and has a plan and a path and motivation to get where they want to be with a plan of how to get there. And that a lot of the time is like, you know, professional careers and having drive. And I think your deal breaker right now is he doesn't have drive. I don't think it's the fact that he doesn't have his high school degree, because the only reason you know he doesn't have his high school degree is because he told you. That's not something you can see on someone. Like he needs to like work through some stuff, and supporting him in that is the best thing that you can do. And I just think that this is really not his fault. And if he has friends who are like friends from high school that you also might know or anything like that, I think make sure that you can try and facilitate a conversation with him about this coming from a supportive place. But if it's not working and there's some resistance, and you said that you come from an academic background, and again, he just might feel like the worlds are very different, have a friend who he went to school with or something that like to try and facilitate that conversation. And sometimes there's workarounds of like wanting to go to couples therapy together and then talking to a therapist to kind of like bring this stuff up. Like this is something that is affecting your relationship. Again, it's his drive and his motivation. It's not just having this piece of paper. but it is something that he can't just ignore, and you also can't ignore, and it's not going to fix itself on its own. Like, this is something that requires time and energy from him to do that, but it's when he's ready. But you just need to create an environment where he feels ready and he doesn't feel like he's being watched. And there's like pressure to do this, or he's going to lose everything, because that's like telling someone my deal breaker is depression. If you're depressed, you need to be not depressed and then we're good, versus I really care about you. I see that you're hurting. I really want, like, what I know therapy might seem like a hard thing. Like, why don't we start going together and talking about it? I'm going to start going to therapy. I think this will help me. But if you're not coming from a place where you can relate, it's really easy to come from a place of I know better than you. And that can be even more, they can push people even farther away.
Yeah.
But my heart goes out to him. This is just like, this like without a doubt would have been me if my circumstances were slightly different. So like, I feel for, I'm really like sorry for him that he was robbed of this. And again, there's no way that this came out of the blue. Kids who don't perform well in school, there's a reason, and that reason is out of their control. And when it gets to the point that you're a senior in high school and you haven't been helped and you haven't been given the resources and things you need to succeed, that just tells me that people have been failing you consistently to the point where you don't think it's other people failing you. You think it's you failing.
Mm-hmm.
And you carry that, you know?
Yep.
Wait, so if they've been dating for 5 years and he's 22, did you know him in high school?
Yeah.
Calculator.
I think that's...
Yeah. So then you probably do have some mutual friends. 17. So maybe you met him right as he was.
Or he wasn't in high school, but while they were of high school age.
And if you're an academic, that makes sense that like he's being drawn to somebody who has something that you don't have. Like sometimes we seek the proxy of that, and that's like a conscious decision because, you know, we start relationships with people who we want to emulate, and you're in a position of like support and understanding. And I'm sure it would feel really amazing to know that somebody who he probably wished he had the academic career of and like looks up to in that sense, to have you validate like his feelings and like what he went through and acknowledge that that isn't on him. I can't imagine like a more impactful like feeling from your partner.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ready for Don't Blame Them?
Now it's time for Don't Blame Them. Don't Blame Them is the part of the show where listeners call in with their own advice pertaining to a call we had on a previous episode. So maybe they have personal experience with it, or they have some insight, or they heard something on the call that we didn't address, their own advice, or they just want to call and just be like, wow, Meghan and Melisa were so spot on, amazing, wonderful, fantastic.
Hi, I'm calling in for a Don't Blame Them in response to the call about compulsory heterosexuality. I'm a queer, non-binary person, and my pronouns are they, them. I just want to address the caller and let you know that Melisa and Meghan are giving you solid advice based on my experience with this exact same situation. I'm 30 now, but I spent most of my teens and 20s in relationships with cis men, and I spent a lot of that time agonizing over whether I was actually into men or not, although I've never had a doubt that I'm queer. The conclusion that I've come to is that I am into men as well as people of all genders, but I've been in relationships with men that I loved so much on many levels, but I just didn't feel that spark or romantic connection with them as individuals. So, caller, you might be into guys, you might not, but you're not into your boyfriend the way that he's into you. And having done this myself, I know that it is so hard to break up with someone who's really wonderful and you care so much about. But it's really the kind and right thing to do to be honest with him and to free him to find a partner who feels as passionately about him as he does about them. And if you're anything like me, you need to get out there and date different types of people to answer that question of who you're actually attracted to. Again, if you're like me, it will just nag at the back of your head until you do. So don't make my mistake and stay in a relationship with someone for years and years and years, because they're incredible in a million ways, but then find that you have to rip your entire life apart to finally end things. So personally, I'm living my best queer life now, and I just wish you all the best and hope you end up in a place where you're confident that you're living the life that you want to live too.
That's amazing. I will say, let's not say that you made a mistake. You had your own journey, and like you said, you're like living your best your best queer life now. And I don't think that we waste time in like relationships. I think we just like learn things about ourselves.
Mhm.
And sometimes we learn things when we're single. Sometimes we learn things in relationships, and like they're not valued more than the other. But I don't think you made any mistakes. And I don't think anybody who learning anything about yourself, especially like who you're attracted to and all of that, we have so many years of our lives like on like this earth, and like we think about those fucking like old dudes who get like sports cars at like 45 because like they just want to change something up, or like we're always going to be doing that. Like it's never too late. Like we've never wasted so much time.
Yeah.
We're always going to learn new things and want to change aspects of like everything that if you had it all figured out from like the time that you woke up, like first opened your eyes, like that would be like a really excruciating, like long time on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that'd be you'd be bored as fuck. Like, and it's some lessons you learn from books, some you learn from people, some you like learn from being with the wrong people. Like it's never like a mistake either way.
Yeah. I like how kind of like the world sort of just like lines up sometimes. And a former guest that was on this podcast, Kelsey Dara, friend of the pod, her podcast came out on Monday and it was on this topic, the same thing. Like the topic was compulsory heterosexuality. So if anyone wants to learn more info, go check out Kelsey's podcast. And I told her to. So she's like,
amazing.
She asked more about what had happened on our show. So
yeah. And again, I really encourage straight people too to like research and like learn about this, because how we speak, regardless if you view yourself as someone who's like supportive of like the LGBTQIA community, our world is so heteronormative that like the questions that we ask, the content that we consume and everything, like unless you go out of your way to make sure that you're not contributing to that when you have conversations with people, like not even just conversations with people who you know are a part of the community, but like we can also sometimes put that on people we're meeting for the first time.
We do it all the time with babies too. It's like, like look, and I'll say like if we're using like traditional labels, like this is a girl baby and a boy baby. Oh, they're gonna be boyfriend and girlfriend. Like you don't say that about two babies of the same gender. You'll say that they'll be best friends. And that's like where it starts.
Yeah, I think that like, especially when it comes to like this specific topic and the LGBTQ community, that we exist so heavily as like straight people within a binary, but then we say, oh, if you were to come out as opposed to this binary that we've all been living in and that we've also been perpetrating without any malice, we would totally support you. And that to me is like kind of sketchy of like our actions should match those words that we say. And so it's been really helpful for me just to kind of like learn more about like learning about compulsory heterosexuality has just been like helpful to me in realizing that I am heterosexual, but wow, holy shit, the media that I consume as a kid, we fucking talk about like, oh my God, teachers and TV are like making kids gay. When in reality, you look at all of this stuff and you go, oh my gosh, if I was not straight, this would be so oppressive and really confusing. And just knowing that that is not a bubble that only straight people live in, that's the world that we're all born into. And it does just make you recognize in day-to-day life where you are passively just going along with that binary and how you can change that. So then, I don't know, like I think if like I have a kid who comes out, I don't ever want my kid to feel like there was ever like a question that there would be any sort of support based on, like, when you think about something, when you have like something to tell someone or whatever, and they say something so small in passing and they don't even think anything of it. It's a throwaway comment, but that's like burned into your brain as like this snowball effect of this something that's so big that you're like, oh, that's so not, no, I don't. And I think that the world would be a lot more supportive, especially from people who aren't homophobic, if we learned the system that teaches and assumes everybody is straight, if we learn what that is so we cannot contribute to that. And I think that'll make a much safer place for people, you know? So thank you for calling in with that. I hope the original caller is like, you know, you got to explore, have some fun, figure out what you're into. How would you know? How do you know?
How do you know?
Just know. That is it for our episode. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, then you know what you should do. You should probably go on over and leave us a review being like, wow, they are so amazing, so hot and so beautiful. And also big brains, brains with lots of
juicy
grooves.
brains.
Ew. Disgusting.
You want it to be wet though.
I know, but I was telling you in the episode is coming out of, but am I wrong this week? I was telling you about someone who got a TBI, and I didn't tell you this part, but there was a part where his head looked like a gusher and he kept poking it and it was moving all around.
Oh, I
and
could
it was
go
juicy.
for some gushers right now.
I can just see his head in my mind, and I'm like, I don't want to eat that poor boy's head. Disgusting.
You eat mine.
We hope you leave a review. Your husband? Anyway. Never gonna be over it. I showed him the picture and he goes, wait, I didn't listen to the clip without sound. With sound on. He goes, the fuck was that about? And I was like, watching. He was dying. Because I was like, did you watch the clip? And he was like, yeah. And then I showed him the picture. I was like, how funny? He's like, what? I was like, oh, I didn't listen with sound.
Well, so he was just looking at how beautiful we are. So thanks.
Yeah. I also want you to know I spent 2 hours editing to make the bride shorter because they were the same height. And I was like, if I'm going to do the joke, the only part that is the joke is the head switching. I can't also have the height. I need to have the one punch.
You know, I looked at it and I
funny.
was like, was this really this short to begin with? So it did not go in vain because I did notice it.
It adds the humor. Like, you have to have realism with the joke there. I can't make it too outlandish because then, like, what's funny? It's just cheap. It's just a cheap shot.
Right. We're fucking professionals here.
We are. And that's on hyperfixation on a fucking image for a real graphic. Anyways, leave us voicemail, send us voice memos to be in an upcoming episode. Again, 310-694-0976, and audio messages you can email to meghanpodcast@gmail.com, MP3 format. We are constantly looking for new calls, so please call now. There's not like we don't have like a waiting list. We literally like add the calls in every week that we get, and we pick from there. So if it's even something that's like relatively soon that you're like, oh, well, I don't know that they're going to get this, or I don't know, I'm going to waste my time when they probably have all of these other ones. Like, we read transcripts of all of the new calls that come in every single week. So we try and keep things really like up to date.
In the past, we used to bank episodes and like there was a waiting list because we would bank like a bunch of them at a time. But now we're recording less than a week before the episode airs. So call in. Chances are very high that your call will be on the episode.
And it's anonymous. So give us some juicy tea. I know we have been in a panini, but like, I need someone to like,
you missed the
fuck a
sexy
twin.
ones.
Yeah, I want some chaos. And I know some people were asking, like, we were really like not doing anything before that was like against COVID guidelines. We personally have our own moral and ethic thing. So like, please don't call if you're like licking people in public and like spitting
also,
in people's mouths unconsensually. But like, if you're having an orgy and like you were all like, you know, tested for STIs and vax, like call us, like tell us about it.
The protocols are different now because when we first set those were before we all had like home testing and it was like easily available and also vaccinated and boosted.
We obviously don't want your calls if you're an anti-vaxxer and like a call about being an anti-vaxxer. But like,
I would love if an anti-vaxxer called.
It's just,
I'll be ready.
I know. I just like look at those people and I'm like, it must be liberating to be so dumb. Like you must just be constant happiness.
But they spend their time. But is it because they spend their time defending what they do?
But I think that's because they seek out the chaos because their brain is just quiet. And there are no large, complex thoughts to kind of process and go through. And so I think they must create chaos in their lives because otherwise their brain is just elevator music on a loop. And it's elevator music on a loop and like ableist slurs. Like that's like the only thing in their brain.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Anyways.
All right.
If you are still listening at this point, comment your like biggest work from home tip or hack or thing that like any just like work thing that's like very helpful for you. Because I learned about Melissa's like snoozing emails today. So like there's always more to learn. That was even
before we got into this.
Yeah. It was before we started recording this. Okay. We will see you soon.
You saved that.
I did. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Don't Blame Me is a production by me. Executive produced by Melissa DeMonts and Diamond Imprint Productions. Edited by Coco Lawrence. Post-production sound by Chris Henry. Production assistance by Melanie D. Watson. Music by Ryan Hunter and Giacomo Picasso.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all. I'm JJ.
Hey, guys. It's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests who share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to like speak of them or talk about them or in any way like portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. Like it would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. Look for The Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.